All right, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. It is a live coffee and Celtics edition here on a Friday morning. We're going to have the show a little bit different here as we enter the All-Star break this weekend. We are going to have kind of our first half award show, but it's Valentine's Day style. So we're going to do it a little bit differently. We'll explain it all when we get into it. Grab your coffee, sit back, relax, join us in the chat here. It's Friday Coffee and C's. You know the deal. This is Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Coffee and C's, part of the Green with Envy broadcast. We appreciate y'all joining us here today on a Friday, lovely holiday Friday morning. And of course, Coffee and Celtics is sponsored by Wood Island Media, a powerhouse production company for the past decade, specializing in celebrity, branded, and social content based in Los Angeles, but roots in Boston. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Happy Valentine's Day to all who are going to have a good night. And even if you don't have special somebody, just remember, treat yourself. And joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. Happy Valentine's Day as a friend. Happy Friends Valentine's Day.
I mean, let's be real. We're life partners, bro. We've been best friends since we
I
were
know
3 years old.
it's a joke that gets made so often in our actual lives that it is what it is. Happy Valentine's Day.
Going back to when we were initially in Austin and they were doing like the couples award, the couples games, right? I forget what that was. What was that for?
It was
for
like
an engagement party.
It was, I actually remember this was our friend Carl and Allison's engagement party.
Okay.
And it's like the couples game or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
you're like
you
back to back and they're asking questions, you know, what was your first memory of this? Who would be more likely to do that? And they just decided to put me and Will back to back on chairs. They were like, hey man, let's let it ride. Let's let it ride. I'm your best man. I'm your best friend. Let's do it, man. You're like my brother. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Do you have any big plans tonight?
Absolutely not. One of the things I love the most about my wife is that she doesn't care about Valentine's Day. It was one of the best things at the beginning of our relationship to find that out. So we don't really do much for Valentine's Day. Don't have to worry about the stress. I was with a friend a couple weeks ago, and he's like newly in a hasn't been in a relationship in a while. And he was like, dude, I didn't know about this whole Valentine's thing. I had to like make a reservation. This is like a month ago.
So I didn't know about this whole Valentine's
or about
Day
like
thing.
how you like if your chick's into it or your dude's into it, like you gotta really prep for this.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, dude, I was looking at reservations thinking it'd be no problem. And this was like a month out. And he was like, dude, I could just, hey man, I'm sure you got to get on it. I'm like, yeah, we don't do that thing. So for us, it's mostly like I think we're gonna taste a little bit of wine that we might do for the wedding, and then we did get some tickets to like this like taco pop-up event tomorrow.
Okay,
that's our Valentine's Day. We don't really do much. How about you and the lady?
Let me tell a quick little anecdote to explain like how unserious we take Valentine's Day. But what I would also love to hear from people that are joining us today, drop either your favorite Valentine's Day tradition or like your worst Valentine's Day story in the chat. I would love to see that and maybe read a couple of those. I always find those so funny. But with Danielle, so I'm at Trader Joe's yesterday, and I don't know how often you go to Trader Joe's. They've got wonderful.
I don't go all the time, but it's good. It's right near your new work, right?
Exactly.
Over by the Arboretum. Yeah,
right across the street. So we always go there like as like a group of coworkers. We just like walk around Trader Joe's, and like half the time we don't buy anything. But they have like all of these flowers. Yeah. They're like, who are these people that just come in there every day and just stand there in the circle?
What do you like, the old people in the mall who go for their walks? You guys go to fucking Trader Joe's?
Basically, there's nowhere to walk. We're coming from the Domain where there's like the most walkable, break that you could take, and now we're in the Arboretum. It's just not as good. But Trader Joe's has great floral arrangements. So they have like all these Valentine's Day bouquets out there for about $20, but there are also just like typical bouquets that they have there that are like $3, $4. So, I bring home flowers for Danielle every once in a while just because, like, why not? She likes flowers. And yesterday I didn't want to spend $20 on the Valentine's Day bouquet because why? And she doesn't even like roses. She likes more wildflower arrangements. So I'm there. I see some beautiful white irises, and I'm like, ooh, I feel like she would really like these. So I get them. It's lunchtime. I bring them back to the office. I stick them in a little cup with water, and I'm like, I'm coming home today. I'm gonna bring home soup. I'm gonna bring home a big baguette. We're gonna have some soup. We're gonna have some bread, and I'm gonna present these flowers to Danielle. Lo and behold, I forget them at work. And as I'm driving home, I'm like, damn it. Like, I forgot the flowers. And I was thinking to myself, like, today's Valentine's Day. I'm working from home, so I'm not going to be in the office. Office is 30 minutes away. Should I drive to get the flowers? Like, do I really want to do that and make that effort to go get those flowers? Like, she doesn't care that much about Valentine's Day. I would say she doesn't care at all about Valentine's Day. So I just decided when she got home from work, I was like, hey, babe, I got you flowers, but I left them at work. They're white irises. They're beautiful. They're going to live on my desk in memory of you, but like, I'm not going to be bringing them home. And she thought it was hilarious. She was like, that's so you. Like, you forget everything.
Dude, it's funny because you said we're like, we're basically like in a relationship. In my head, when you said you left them, I was already kind of thinking that's where the story was going. And then you said you left them. I was like, that's so Greg. Like I
Yeah.
literally said that in my head. But I also want to call out this little comment we got here in the chat from one Lilia Hartstock. Alex bought me flowers and chocolate. My favorite tradition for sure.
Can we
Shout
bring
out to
Alex onto the
our
screen? Can
guy,
we bring Alex on
Alex.
real quick?
Look at that, Alex. You want to come say something for a quick second here?
Yeah, I can. Hello.
Player. What's a good little comment in here? I like it.
Yeah, I'm actually at her apartment right now, so she's behind me.
Hey, my
Hey.
guy. Yeah,
All
boy.
right.
Yeah,
Someone's definitely
boy.
having a good Valentine's Day. That's what I'm talking about. All right, Alex, we'll get you out of here. Sorry about that. Had to do it. But yeah, so this is good. This is on brand for today's episode. Today's episode, we're gonna treat this as a Valentine's Day special. Basically, we came up with a couple of categories that are all similar to those sweetheart chocolates, or not chocolates, excuse me, the fucking chalky ass candy that has different sayings on it. It's terrible candy. It's like really, really bad. But they always have different sayings on them. So we're going to use that as a way to kind of celebrate this all-star break here and kind of review some of the first half things, some things that are looking back, some things that are in the present, some moments where we're kind of looking ahead. So we're going to get all into that here in just a moment. Real quick, Greg, though, I did want to give us just 2 to 3 minutes quickly here. Wemby just came to town. You and I are going to see Wemby a week from today.
Yep.
So I wanted to quickly get your thoughts on Wemby and the new look Spurs against the Celtics from 2 nights ago.
We're kind of their kryptonite. Wemby's never played well against the Celtics. Like, you have a stretch five that can just bring, Wemby, put him in a pick and roll. Jason Tatum draws too. Wemby's not sure if he should stay with Tatum or get back out to the shooter. He's not quick enough at this point in his career to help and recover out to Kristaps Porzingis shooting from 30 feet. Al Horford, just spacing out to the wing. So I've honestly never been impressed with Wemby, like watching him live against the Celtics or watching him play against the Celtics. I think he kind of stinks against the Celtics, to be honest with you. It's kind of like Rudy Gobert early in his career where the Celtics just cooked him. Like Brad Stevens was like, oh, like this guy's going to be on the court. Let's just take advantage of him every time. Put him in every action. Go right at him. Don't be scared of him. Because I think Wemby as a looming presence off the ball, coming over help side and just contesting every shot, that's the Wemby. That's the defensive player of the year. We made him look like a second-year player that's still very much figuring out NBA offenses. Like, he didn't look good at all. I've never been impressed with his stamina. I feel like I'm cooking Wemby right now, but like, I've honestly like never been impressed with his stamina. Watching him live, dude, he looks exhausted every time he's like getting up and down the court. So I'm hoping when I see Wemby play against who are we going to see? The Pistons,
Yep.
who are now out of the play-in, 29 and 26 going into the All-Star break. Shout out to the Pistons. We'll see them next Friday here in Austin, Texas. I'm hoping I see a great Wemby game because I haven't seen a great Wemby game live. I've never really been impressed with him.
Yeah, it was I kind of felt similar. The one thing that I would say for Wemby, and I think this is going to turn into like a very specific Wemby statistic that will come out. Someone will figure out how to measure it, but the U-turn factor.
Oh, the U-turn factor is great.
Right. That's one of my favorite parts. You saw Peyton Pritchard hit it a couple times. You saw a couple times where Luke caught the ball, turned, and was like, nope, and then just kind of moved it. And to your point, that's his biggest fear factor is when you know that he might be coming from somewhere. But because when the Celtics have their starters essentially out, and you include Sam Hauser, Peyton, when they're just completely spread out 5 wide, it kind of not eliminates Wemby, but takes him out a little bit, right? And then, like you said, the stamina was very noticeable. So, all that being said, a guy had still 17 and 13 in a few moments where you were like, oh, he just did that without jumping. Okay. All right. That was different. But a game of Celtics pretty thoroughly dominated. And I got to say, Greg, I'm glad for this break for the Celtics, but man, Jason Tatum is playing some MVP level basketball these last like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And there's almost a part of me that was like, ooh, this is that. Remember how we used to always look forward to that January heater that he would go on? It's kind of that right now. So I'm hoping this break doesn't stop that. So we'll see. But yeah, Jason Tatum was on one. We get a little comment in the chat here. KP, the original unicorn, put Wemby in a blender with a silky smooth Kevin McHale set of moves that he did. KP was not afraid of Wemby, which, you'd love to see that. Love to see KP kind of embracing that moment. But with that, all right, let's get into our Valentine's Day episode. As I mentioned, we have 6 categories here. Greg has 3, I have 3, where we're going to tell you how we decided to, kind of use these categories. They're going to be set up very similar to those sweethearts that you get with different sayings on them. So, Greg, why don't you go first, and you guys will pick us up as we start going here. So, Greg, let's go to you here for the first one.
Okay. So before I say what the award is, I also want to call out some other developments that I was considering for this award. So, other developments I was considering: the increase in 2 big lineups, Peyton Pritchard's confidence, Jaylen Brown's post game, Luke Cornett staying ready, and Kristaps Porzingis staying healthy. Okay, these are all things that I've really been keeping my eye on as positive developments for the Boston Celtics. So my award is called, Alex, the Swipe Right Award. What do you think of these graphics, Will? Jason Tatum, pick and roll ball handler. This is what I'm looking at as the most positive development right now in the first half of this season. Jason Tatum, primary option, run and pick and roll. Let me just talk to you about some stats. Jason Tatum is in the 83rd percentile, 1.02 points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler this season, while also increasing his frequency to almost 7 pick and roll opportunities per game. He's right around 6.8 at this point. I thought this was a career high for him just by eye test, but actually back in 2020, 2021, he was at 7.1 for the season, but he was only in the 73rd percentile, 0.96 points per possession. That's his next best year. So for reference, last year he was 0.95 points per possession, 5.4 opportunities per game. The year prior, he was 5.6 opportunities per game. In the 54th percentile, only 0.89 points per possession. Shout out to Alex for putting together those graphics there. Alex, can you bring that graphic up one more time? Because I want to talk about where Tatum ranks here. So minimum 40 games and 6 possessions per game, right? So he's at 1.02 points per possession. That actually ranks 8th in the league right now. So SGA is number 1 at 1.13, Brunson 1.08, Hallie 1.07, Fox and Dame also at 1.07, Garland 1.06, and Edwards 1.04. And then you have Tatum and Mitchell's actually right behind him. And when you think about Donovan Mitchell in the pick and roll, like you in your brain, it's a more effective play than Jason Tatum in the pick and roll, right? And then the league average is 0.86 points per possession. So Jason Tatum's development, thank you, Alex, is absolutely one of the things that I'm swiping right on this year. And I honestly, I kind of forgot. We haven't been on the dating apps in so long. I haven't been on Tinder, Bumble in like 5-6 years. So I kind of forgot swipe right, swipe left, which one was the positive
thing. I proposed the incorrect ways to swipe when we were doing our meeting before this.
But I think with Jason Tatum in the pick and roll, he just looks so much more confident. He has all of the counters at this point. He's able to drag 2 defenders out to the sideline, really extend the defense, and not just drag the defense out to the sideline and then find the guy in the short roll to play 4-on-3. He's also able to drag people out to the sideline, hit them with that little double cross and turn the corner and get into the lane, which is really high level. And I've never seen
Mhm.
that out of Tatum before up until this most recent stretch, which, as you said, it feels like he's about to go on one of those heaters. I would argue he's already on that heater, right?
Right.
Like he's playing like an MVP. We had that video we put out there about comparing him to SGA. You see SGA, I mean, obviously 1.13 lead in the league in pick and roll efficiency. Like SGA really is that dude. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say SGA isn't on the same level as Tatum. I just don't like when people say Tatum's not on the same level as SGA, because I really think he is.
Yeah. Jason Tatum has gone to another level, and I think it's interesting, right? Because he didn't get the Finals MVP, he didn't get the Conference Finals MVP, but he's getting finally a little bump of respect when you look around, and like there's still guys that will try to do the detraction thing of like he's not quite in the top 5, but you're seeing guys who are even pretty staunch about like, hey, it's Jokic, it's Giannis, it's SGA, it's Luka, and then it's kind of everybody else that are now like, I got to put Tatum in this group. Like you've seen like Rosillo talk about it. Jason Timp, who we've had on this podcast, just had a whole video about comparing Tatum as being the modern version of LeBron. And all of this is that decision making that
I missed
goes
that
with
video.
like the pick and roll. Yeah, I've only watched the beginning of it so far. I've got it saved that I want to go back to it today when I have more time. And you know, when you mention like dragging two guys out, that's something that has really, I don't think I remember him ever being able to do that at the level that he's doing it like he has this year. Like that feels like brand new to me. And I don't know if you saw these clips that were going around. Drew Hanlon was promoting his book in Boston this week.
Great title, by the way. Stop bullshitting yourself. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the car Kelly Oubre gave him with the giant book sticking out of it? That's he has this giant. It's a horrible car, but you know, cool gift. But they gave him a Cybertruck with like his giant book sticking out of the back. I don't know.
Wait, Kelly Oubre gifted Drew Hanlon a Cybertruck?
Yeah, he's one of Drew Hanlon's clients.
Okay, so now Drew Hanlon can go around the city picking up trash with all the other Cybertrucks. They just look like futuristic trash vehicles. That's what they look like.
I think they're one of the other things.
I think when people pimp out the Cybertruck and like really customize it, they can look kind of cool. But the basic Cybertruck, I think looks like a trash truck.
You ever pull up next to one driving around, and like in Austin, there's a bunch of them. Pull up next to drive one, just like this isn't cool. Like it doesn't look cool. It doesn't feel cool.
No.
I don't get the appeal. But anyways, there was a clip they were watching. Drew Hanlon brought some old footage of Tatum, and it might have been honestly around that 2020-21 time. It was before Kobe passed away, and so you know it was footage of him working out with Kobe that we haven't really seen before. And, you know, it was small little clips that I saw kind of going around. So I don't know what the full context was, but one of them was kind of, you know, Tatum in the post and Kobe working with him on drawing, like take an extra dribble, draw them like away. And so it kind of made me think of what you were talking about with like kind of dragging those defenders. And like it started with the last year or two, like just hitting the short, making the smart pass. And now he's gone to that level where it's, let me do that extra dribble, drag him out, and I'm either going to make some crazy hook pass that's one level past what you thought I was going to do, or maybe if I'm on the wing, I'm actually taking a step back to an in and out or a crossover, and I might be going by you two. Never mind. Like there's all these other counters that he's got off of it now. And so I was thinking of all of that as you were describing all of the numbers that have gone into his pick and roll statistics. And it makes total sense because now teams are just like, we just got to double him. We got to make anyone else, including Jaylen Brown, beat us. We'll let anyone beat us, but not Jason Tatum. So love.
Hey, Alex, can you bring up that that comment from Rob one more time where he's talking about Jason Tatum's pace in the pick and roll? So shout out to Rob version 1. He says the next step for JT is to get into the pick and roll actions early. He still cracks close to 16 to 17 seconds on the shot clock before crossing the half court line. If he can speed up bringing up the ball, we can play with more pace. I'm kind of like, I agree with you to some degree, but when you think about the way the Celtics run pick and roll, I think a lot of it has to do with the big sprinting into the screen to create that initial separation from the opposing big, right? So if Tatum's sprinting up the court, not allowing the big man to really like get down before he gets back up and sprinting into that pick and roll, that negates that to some degree. But I agree, you know, over the last few games, I've actually kind of liked the pace the Celtics have been playing at because they've been executing so efficiently to the numbers that I pulled up there. But there is something to be said about that. Tatum definitely does walk the ball up the court a little bit, but it's one of those things where like he's a superstar. He's manipulating the game. He's not just reading the defense. He's manipulating defenses at this point. And if he needs to do it by walking up the ball and like really letting all the pieces get into place before doing that manipulation, I'm kind of on the side of Tatum and just like trusting his instincts, but I also see the point of, we've seen the teams that play with pace against the Celtics and how effective that can be. I just don't know if Tatum's the guy necessarily to ask him to push the pace. I think if you have the ball in other people's hands, then maybe we can push the pace. But Tatum, I kind of just don't want to mess with what he's doing because he's been so efficient.
It's the best version of himself, right? No, by far, by far. Okay, cool. Let me go to my Valentine here, and of course, it's got to be the counter opposite to what Greg just did here. So, Greg, you mentioned we haven't been on the apps in quite a bit, right? So, as I was thinking of this next award, I wanted to try to figure out, try to put myself back in time a little bit about when I was on the apps, what I'd be looking at. As you're swiping through pictures, all of a sudden there's one that kind of catches your attention, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Let me click into this a little bit. Let me do a little bit more investigative work. And as you start looking through the pictures, right, you're like, okay. All of a sudden, you start to realize, why are these all at the same angle? This is a little weird. There's something off about what I'm looking at here, and you're starting to wonder what it might be. And then finally, you get to one shot that kind of spans out. You see, what's really happening here, that you're being a little bit deceived. And that, my friends, is when you swipe left. I'm swiping left today on the Milwaukee Bucks. It all looks
Amazing.
Good. A lot of Giannis when you first come across that profile. And you're like, all right, I can see what they're going for here. I see what's happening. And then all of a sudden, when you try to dig in a little bit, there's Giannis here, Giannis there, a little more Giannis. What else is there besides this Giannis fella? And then all of a sudden, you kind of dig back. You could peel past whatever they have with Giannis out front, and you look at the rest of this Milwaukee Bucks team. And after the move they made over the deadline, which we covered, trading in their identity, Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma, all the insecurities that I thought that you might be covering up with all of these, that was being covered by everything that Giannis provides you, you just made it all feel 100% correct. Milwaukee Bucks, I'm swiping left on them because I don't believe that they are any longer, even with Giannis, a team that I'm going to put a caveat to of, well, you got to fear the Bucks. They have Giannis. Once you traded Middleton for Kuzma, you told me everything about how you felt about your team, and you are a team of desperation. And now when I look at the East, the Cavs, healthy respect, especially with DeAndre Hunter. The Knicks, they're basically, a worse version of what the Celtics try to do, but they need to be respected because of that top-end talent that you have to kind of have a healthy fear of. Mm-hmm. And then honestly, if there's a third team I'm picking, it's the Pacers. It's not the Bucks anymore. The Bucks were always kind of that respect pick. The Sixers aren't even in the freaking playoffs right now, so I eliminated them from even contention.
Argument they should tank so they keep their pick. They have a top 100%
pick. Yeah, they're in a different category at this point. The Bucks, they're still fifth place in the East. There are a few games behind the Pacers, and honestly, that's the way it should be. Like, I think right now, Cavs, Knicks, Pacers, if I have to give you a top three that I think could challenge or give the Celtics trouble, it's those three teams. The Bucks are no longer that team. No longer do we fear the deer. We're not being fooled by the angles. Swiping to the left of the Milwaukee Bucks.
First of all, unbelievable setup for that. Shout out to you for putting that much thought into it. But I'm a little surprised that you're like kind of hating on a little bit more junk in the trunk, man. Like the big girls need some love too, bro.
I ain't saying this. It's. I mean, there's different versions of this angle. Have you ever you back in the day? You ever been fooled by one of these angles?
Bro, you're talking to the guy, my cat.
Oh, that's true. I mean, yeah, that's not a story for here, but yes, I know some of your escapades. So yes, I know that you know the angle trick, right? So
yes,
listen,
I know the angle trick. I know the trick of like the cropping, not just the angle, but the actual cropping of the pictures. Yeah, I know all about that life. But here's what I'm thinking to continue this analogy. So they bring in Kyle Kuzma, who's I think now he doesn't really do the crazy outfits and the crazy hair anymore, but it's very similar to like you're swiping through those pictures, something interests you, and then you get to this one picture and you see like a certain hairstyle, or maybe they chopped it all off, they got the bob going, or maybe they all of a sudden you see a picture of them with like braided hair and you're like, yeah, you're probably not the the type of person that should have braided hair. And there's like all this stuff going on. You look into their profile, you look at their interests, you look at their TV shows, and you're like, maybe I could watch that TV show. Maybe I could watch that TV show. And then you see like How I Met Your Mother or something like that, or The Big Bang Theory. I know more people like How I Met Your Mother than Big Bang Theory.
I don't like either. So this is working for me.
Okay. Yeah. So at that point, you're just like, oh, this is what it's like bringing Kyle Kuzma into the fold here. Shout out to you, though. That was an unbelievable analogy.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that's all I got on that one. Bucks, swipe left. See you later.
Okay. I love it. All right, I'm gonna go to my next award. Not really too much of a setup here, but we're gonna go with Jaylen Brown. Okay, and Alex, before you pull that graph, oh, there you go. But let's just pull the graphic up. Pull it up. Why not? Okay. So I'm gonna go Jaylen Brown's jump shot. So looking here at the graphic on the screen, we have Jaylen Brown's shooting percentages over the past 5 seasons, right? So the red line that you see are his percentages on mid-range jump shots. The blue line that you see are just his overall percentage on jump shots. Will, what do you notice about those lines? Which way are they going?
Not in the direction I'd like.
Down and to the right.
Yeah.
Down and to the right. It's like the Seinfeld episode with the magic loogie. And this is what I'm really concerned about with Jaylen Brown, is looking at these numbers where, back in 2020, 2021, when we started to see this development out of him as a mid-range assassin, and, Jaylen Brown in the mid-range was one of the most efficient shots in basketball. He was shooting nearly 50%. I actually think he was over 50%. And those numbers have just plummeted over the past few years to this point where he's shooting under 40% on mid-range jumpers this year. He's at like 38%, which is just not sustainable if Jaylen Brown wants to be the number 2 on this team. I just don't know what happened to his shot. I've called it out on this podcast many times that Jaylen Brown's jump shot is something I'm always watching. I'm always concerned about. Going into the playoffs last year, Will, you know that I was like, Jaylen's like kind of bricking threes, like not even close, hitting the side of the backboard.
I mean, he seems afraid to take them right now. He's very much passive. Other than, I think there was the Mavericks game. Maybe there's one game in the last like 2-3 weeks that he kind of let it fly a little bit, but you look most box scores, he's not shooting over 3-4 threes per game. Like that's kind of max as to where you're seeing him letting it fly right now.
And I'm okay with him shooting less threes. It's just like clear to me that he has no confidence in his jump shot, right? Because of that. And I don't know, like I've seen videos of Jaylen working out in the off season. Obviously you see the strength and conditioning stuff with him, doing the stuff underwater. But I also have seen videos of him shooting jump shots in the summertime. And the thing that concerns me is Jaylen's like practice shot is nowhere near the way he shoots the ball in games. Like his practice shot,
tell me more about this.
Yeah. So he's not really getting vertical on his shot. He's kind of just like, if you watch some of the greatest shooters like Steph Curry, right? He kind of doesn't really jump that high. Like Luka Doncic doesn't really jump that high when he shoots 3-pointers. Jaylen Brown in games, his release point and how high he's jumping on his shots is just all over the place. There's no consistency to it. Early in his career, if you think about Jaylen Brown shooting the corner 3, in my head, I see him like quick off the floor, kind of like jumping, like if you're jumping jump rope, you know what I mean? He's like, versus like doing a deep squat into a 3-point shot. And like, that's kind of what I'm seeing out of him, is he doesn't really have a consistent release point. He doesn't have a consistent height on that jump shot. And that's just concerning to me, because it doesn't seem like he's practicing the right way. And I don't want to say that he's not practicing, but like he's not practicing the right way from what I've seen, and that's very limited.
You're talking about like game, like it's like Steph Curry, who's famous for his pregame warmups, right? Like he's doing it at full speed a lot of times. That's part of the appeal, right? Is you're seeing how he actually does it in the games. And I haven't been to, or other than the Celtics Mavericks game, and we didn't really watch them warm up, right? So I didn't have a chance to kind of lock in on this. But like, I know what you're saying, and it's from just like TV, like the little footage we get. Jaylen's always very kind of just like lackadaisical with some of his warm up shots, whereas like you said, some of the greats are like Ray Allen, famously, also very intentional about what that warm up looks like, and we don't know the full picture of it. But your point overall, the jump shot with Jaylen Brown, it's very scary right now. And I said this a couple episodes ago, like, I'm glad he's an all-star. He's in that, he is an all-star, right? He's in that category of guys. if Franz, if Paolo, if Embiid were healthy this year, he's probably not an all-star. Like I don't think he's had a good year, but I think there's guys that potentially would have made the all-star game over him this year if there were more candidates for that spot.
For sure.
So he's still our guy. I still believe in Jaylen Brown, especially when it's nut crunch time. Like I'm all in on Jaylen Brown, but it is something I think to definitely keep an eye on here as we go towards not really the second half of the season, but the last third of the season or whatever remains here when we get past the All-Star break.
Some silver linings real quick, Will. JB
Yeah,
in the post early in the season, he was like 97th percentile, no longer up there, but he is still 83rd percentile. Jaylen Brown out of the post. He's only getting about 2.5 opportunities per game. I would like to see that increase to maybe 4 or 5, just to see if he can maintain that efficiency with more opportunities. Also, career high 8.8 potential assists per game. A lot of that coming out of that post-up creation and also running a little bit of pick and roll. So his decision-making is getting a lot better. Previous year was 6.6, right? So he's up 2.2 potential assists per game. And I think that speaks to the growth of Jaylen Brown and why we still believe in Jaylen Brown despite the diminishing returns on that jump shot.
Yeah. One other anecdotal note that I did that you just made me think of that was kind of going through my head the other day. There's been several games this year. I don't know what number I put on it where Jaylen's it's just been a game of two halves, right? Where one half, it's like, there's the Jaylen Brown that I know and love and that I know that we need. And then it just kind of disappears in the second half or vice versa. He has it in the first half. In the second half, it feels like a different game. And that's something I don't really remember seeing from JB too much, but I feel like it's happened several times this year where it's just been two very stark contrasts. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Maybe that was part of the Celtics inconsistencies when we were feeling a little bit shaky, but obviously they're rolling here as we head into the All-Star break. So we'll see what that looks like coming back from San Francisco and All-Star weekend. All right, going over to my next sweetheart category here. This next one, Greg, this is the one where you're trying to feel it out. You're not quite sure if you're into that special someone. You're not ruling them out, but you're not quite sure. There's some things you like, some things you don't. Sometimes it depends on the day, and it could be, it's a whole spectrum of maybe it's their personality, maybe it's sometimes they look great, maybe sometimes they don't. A little bit of Two-Face from Seinfeld. You got that in my head with the Seinfeld reference you job, so you're not quite sure. So for this category, I've got Maybe Tonight. Shout out to Neemias Queta, the winner of the Maybe Tonight award for Neemias Queta. Some nights I watch Neemias Queta, and Greg, I think there's our future starting center. Shades of a healthy Rob Williams. He's long, he's athletic, he has a presence to him in the paint that deters. We don't have a lot of rim deterrents, especially when KP's not out there. So having Neemias Queta is sometimes this major benefit to what our defensive ecosystem could be. And then other nights, I can't believe he's on the court. I can't believe Joe's leaving him out there. He's committing egregious fouls. He's making the wrong reads on offense. He's getting called for, moving picks. He's getting burnt on the outside. Some of this might entirely be more so on Joe than it is on Big Nemi. But it's one of those things where I want to commit. I want to be in this relationship with Neemias, but I just can't quite get there. There's something holding me back, the inconsistencies, and maybe ultimately that's just what this relationship is, and that's all it's ever going to be. And sometimes, Greg, you know what? That's okay. Things are meant to happen for a reason, I believe. So maybe it's just kind of a learning experience for both of us, or maybe I'm gaslighting Nemi, or maybe he's gaslighting me. I'm not quite sure how that works yet. That really wasn't much of the vernacular when we were single. So I'm still a little confused as to exactly what's happening there. But feast or famine with Neemias. Maybe tonight, maybe we'll get the version I like. Maybe we won't. I'm still not quite sure with Neemias Queta.
Yeah, it's like when you meet a girl at a bar, when we were doing the 6th Street scene back in the day. You meet a girl at a bar and you have a wonderful night. Right. Everything, vibes are right. Drinks are flowing. Maybe she comes back to your place. Maybe you go to her place. Maybe something happens. Maybe something doesn't happen. But, vibes are really high. Connections there.
You leave feeling good.
Yeah. Text messages the next day feel okay. You know what I mean? Sometimes you get that text or you send that text and you're worried. You're just leaving it out there, that big matzo ball. But another Seinfeld reference. And then, maybe you hang out again, you go get drinks and it's still good. but you decide like, you know what, I want to put this girl in another situation just to see if there really is something here, right? Joe Mazzulla putting Neemias Queta out there as a starting center or certain lineups, you know, putting him in the back of his own or putting him in a 5-out switch situation. Like, can he handle that? You bring this girl around your friends for the first time, and maybe one of your friends is there who likes to bring up some controversial topics or whatnot. And then all of a sudden you see this girl just like spout out a whole bunch of nonsense that you had no idea was sitting there. And you're just like, ooh, maybe she's not the one. Maybe not
The
tonight.
friend test is big. Friend and family test. Those are some really big tests. So that's like entering the starting 5 or the closing 5 in the NBA.
Exactly. So yeah, I love that pick. Once again, beautiful job setting that up. I love how we kind of approach this different ways. We didn't talk about what this would look like. You're going for the extended analogies, thinking back on the single days. I'm just bringing you pure stats. I love it. It's great. All right, we're gonna go to my next award. And this one, Will, I feel like we're very lucky because we have both found our soulmates, right? We've found our soulmates. I have Danielle, you have Lorena, we have each other, bro. Podcast, best friends, soulmates.
I mean, bro,
let's go.
we're twofer, right? We've got each other and we've got our ladies. We're winning, baby. We're winning.
Oh, the vibes are right today. And I think this soulmate. So you can pull it up, Alex. February 11th was the 3-year anniversary of the Derek White trade to Boston. And thinking back on that trade, it's just so silly to think about because people were upset, man. People were upset that we gave up the haul that we gave to San Antonio for Derek
Not
White.
Romeo. Couldn't be Romeo.
Romeo, is he on an NBA roster? No, he's not. He's in the G League. Josh Richardson, is he doing anything?
Is he on an NBA roster? No, he's not as of right now.
That first round pick turned into Blake Wesley. Is he doing anything for the Spurs? No, he's not. That pick swap in 2028, is that going to matter? Oh, the Spurs have Wemby and De'Aaron Fox. Don't think it's going to matter, right? People said Derek White couldn't shoot. People said Derek White was overpaid, overrated. People said Derek White was just a lesser version of Marcus Smart. People said Brad Stevens, basketball genius Brad Stevens, made a mistake. There's that infamous piece from Neil Iyer on Celtics blog where he says Celtics trade for Derek White is a disaster. And I don't know if he
gets roasted for it all the time.
Oh my God, it's so funny. It's the worst article ever written.
Slack channel. He's Celtics blog Slack channel. Seems like a nice guy. It just one of those things like, hey, you're trying to make a name for yourself. You make a take, put it out there. Didn't age well. Did not age well.
It reminds me of a great Tommy Lee Jones quote from Men in Black. Because I feel like Neil was probably listening to too much of the stuff out there on Celtics Twitter, and that informed his opinion. Maybe he didn't watch enough Derek White. I don't know. But Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black, Men in Black's one of my favorite movies. He says, a person is smart. People are dumb, right? When there's too much groupthink, that's when crazy takes like the Derek White trade is a disaster article gets written, right? When you're listening to too much and you're not like really standing on business and standing on your opinion, or maybe Neil just had a dumb moment. Who knows? But Will, I have some questions for you.
Yeah, let's fire.
How many games would you guess Derek White has neither a steal or a block this season? So 0 steals, 0 blocks.
3.
5.
Yeah, okay.
You're right.
Okay. Yeah. I knew it wasn't gonna be much because if it's either or, he usually gets at least one of those per game. So yeah, 5. That sounds about right.
How many games would you guess Derek White has at least 4 3-pointers?
Ooh, he went through a little bit of a spell, so this is going to be a little bit less. What have they played right now? Like 54 games, 55 games, something like that. Something I don't have the record pulled up, but let's go with 17.
23.
23. Undershot it. All right.
Yeah. How many games would you guess Derek White has at least 3 3-pointers?
So it's at least 23. Can't go under that number. Let's go with 32.
37.
Damn,
Derek White has
35.
37 games with at least 3 3-pointers. And what would you guess the Celtics record is when Derek White has at least 3 3-pointers?
I know it's going to be good because that's one thing that the little, inconsistency spell taught me is, we've talked about it a bunch on the show. Porzingis raises the ceiling. Derek White might be, of course, we know how important the Jays are, but Derek White might be the most important player on this team to play well. So in those, you said the record in those 37 games, I'm going to guess it's 31-6.
Close, 29-8. 29-8.
Okay.
Yeah. So great. Derek White's 3-point accuracy and volume leads to Celtics victories. I actually have some great stats from our guy Brian Barrett from the Ringer Off the Pike show. Last 9 games, Derek White is 17.8 points per game, 47.7% from the field, 41.8% from distance. The Celtics are 8-1 in those games. The previous 23 games where Derek White was struggling, Celtics were 13-10, only averaged 13.5 points per game, 39% from the field, 32.3% from three. The first 20 games of the season, Celtics were 17-3. Derek White averaged 18.4 points per game, 47.8% from the field, 41.8% from three. When Derek White is on, the Celtics win.
Yeah. You want to know how the Celtics are doing? Go check Derek White's numbers and let's see what that looks like. It's going to be a pretty good result for the Celtics. All right. Let's go to the last Valentine's Day award that we have here. Greg, for this one, I took myself back to high school. And I was kind of thinking about, and I couldn't remember. Was it candy or was it like flowers that you could buy and they drop them off in homeroom? What was it exactly?
Oh, carnations.
The carnations. Okay, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at our high school, you could buy these and you could send it to your girl, you could send it to your friend, or you sign it like a little bit anonymously. This is, to me, this next category was you're planting seeds. You're not making a full scale move, but you're kind of looking to the future a little bit, right? You want to let that one girl in math class, maybe not in your friends circle, you don't really roll with her too much, but you just want to let her know, like, I see you out there.
Do you have an actual face in mind
right now? I don't have an actual face in mind. I think I have faces that I wish I had done this for that I never actually did.
Okay.
And so, you send them a little something that's, it's anonymous, but maybe there's a joke there. They know, like, oh, this came from this person here. Like, okay, cool. We do have some type of vibe, type of connection. And so you're stowing it away for future resources. So this is the Call Me award, and it goes to Jaden McDaniels. So
okay.
Greg, the reason that I settled on Jaden McDaniels here is, listen, the Celtics, they roster, it is what it is. We're complete right now. We're going to be what we are. We've made our moves that we've made. We, didn't really bring anybody in at the trade deadline other than, we did bring in Torrey Craig, who got his first run this past game.
Real hot girl shit.
And he actually looked pretty good. I liked what I saw out of Torrey Craig. So that's a story for another day. But when you look at what this team is going to have to do down the line, there's going to be some sacrifices that have to be made, right? And there's one route that I'm not ready to talk about. You mentioned this guy. We're not talking about him for a while until we absolutely have to. So I'm not talking about moving off of that individual. And so likely win, lose, or draw the rest of this season, there's going to be probably one of those big names move because with what Derek White, what Drew Holiday, what KP, what JT, what JB make, it's just going to be unsustainable on the books. And then with all of the infractions that come along with the second apron, once you're there for multiple years, something's going to happen. So I tried to look at, listen, it's a hard truth. We're probably going to have to move Drew Holiday, most likely. Maybe there's some other ways around it that I'm not aware of. Brad Stevens is, much more adept at this than I will ever be. And so I was like, if we have to move him, what's a scenario that maybe we could get something that we really like out of it? So I tried to find contracts that were less, and there's at least maybe a reasonable way to talk yourself into it. And you've talked a lot, Greg. We need to be bigger, right? We're a little small at times. So how do we get bigger? How do we get longer? We know Joe will not play guys that are not at least willing to shoot the three, albeit Jaden McDaniels, not a great three-point shooter. 2 years ago was at about 39, 40%. Every other year of his career, he's kind of like 31, 32, 33. Not a great, but a willing shooter. And you factor in him getting looks with this Celtics team. And you look at, the Minnesota Timberwolves just finally changed ownership. Alex Rodriguez, Mark Lowry are now the owners. We've seen what happens with new owner syndrome. Insert the Luka Doncic trade. Insert the Kevin Durant trade in Phoenix, right? We've seen big moves, splashy moves that are made. I could envision a world where A-Rod's like, you know what? We need to bring in a champion. We don't have anyone on this Timberwolves roster here that can really mentor these young guys. Rudy Gobert ain't never won shit. Anthony Edwards is still on his way up. Mike Conley's, old and on his way out. And, he's been as far as the Western Conference Finals. Drew Holiday, 2-time champion, 2 different teams, 2 gold medals. This is a guy that could come in, instill a culture to this Minnesota Timberwolves team, a maturity to this team. And Jaden McDaniels has 3 years after this. Drew Holiday has 2 at a higher price, so there might be some trade-offs there. But if you really squint, you can potentially see why the Wolves might make a move like this. And for the Celtics, you get longer, you get younger, you get a lengthy defender that really fits into the vibe of what you're going for. And so, just throwing it out there. I don't know that this is going to be a move, but if there's ever an opportunity, you want to make sure that you've laid the proper groundwork for that time and hit him with a call me. So Jaden McDaniels gets my call me Valentine's Day.
Dude,
award.
you're the MVP, the GOAT, the best host in the game. This reminds me of the AIM days back in the day when everybody had their profile. You know what I mean? And you remember, I don't know if I ever did it or if it was more a girl thing that they would do to kind of get the attention of guys, but they might drop somebody's initials in the AIM profile. You remember these days when there was like
you used to do it with like your friends. It's kind of
823.
fucked up. You would like rank your friends, right, with like different initials and stuff, or like your crew or something like that.
I'm more thinking of like when people would drop like the 143, the 823.
Oh, like you're in a relationship with somebody. Yeah.
So like one, it would be, or like there were times, I'm not going to say anybody's name, but I remember this one girl in 7th grade, way back in the day in 7th grade, her AOL profile, it had like all these words, and then in the middle of these words, you should probably put like, I don't know, 700 words in just like a block of text. And in the middle of it, it said, "I love Greg." And I remember seeing that and being like, damn, like this girl's kind of crazy, like to go about and do that shit. But then there was always like in the AIM profiles, people would drop the 823 just to see. 823 means thinking of you. And they would put somebody's initials, and their hope that they would look at their profile to see if they were actually interested in them. So this reminds me of that. And Jaden McDaniels is somebody that I've always coveted. I think he's a great player. As you said, his measurables are phenomenal. He's a little bit of a hothead, fouls way too much. But I think that's definitely a trade that I'd be interested in the offseason.
Yeah. And you got to squint. You got to squint to see that if the Timberwolves would do it. But it's like I said, it's the new owner syndrome. It's they're kind of trying to find their way out. They're not going to get great value for Rudy Gobert. It's trading 2 years for 3 years, a little bit of flexibility. I don't know. You got to
Nas Reed's my boy in that team. I know they probably wouldn't get rid of Nas after trading Towns, but
he's the only one that makes sense on that team.
Nas is the guy that I would want in Boston. I've always loved Nas Reed.
For sure.
Before Nas turned into Nas, he was my favorite like bench player in the league. He was that guy that I always kind of called out as somebody that I thought was underutilized because he wasn't on the T-Wolves, right? Was he on the Sixers early in his career, or was he always on the T-Wolves?
I thought he was drafted by the.
He may have been. I may be thinking of somebody else, but I know. I've always really liked Nas.
Yeah, Nas Reed's always been good. Yeah, I think he's always been on the T-Wolves, but maybe he was traded like early on. But yeah, he's always been with the T-Wolves. It looks like here. But yeah, Nas Reed's great, man. That would obviously be a really great move, and that would potentially be an Al/KP replacement. If that would be a trade, I would be all for. We'll have to dig in, unfortunately, to those later on. I see some Herb Jones, Asar Thompson in here.
Yeah.
Herb Jones and Trey Murphy were 2 guys I thought of. But it's just like I couldn't figure out why the Pelicans taking on old dude in Drew Holiday. Like I just don't think that makes much sense. So it was hard to come up with those guys. Asar potentially a little bit more there. I think he's probably too valuable and too young for the Pistons, even though they might love a guy. I think they would try to be like, hey, what about Tobias Harris? And we're like, hey, how about no? And then that
I would have thought Tobias Harris would be outplaying Paul George this year.
Right. It's a crazy world that we live in. But great job by the chat today with some people that you guys came up with as well. Greg, this was a blast. I had a good time doing this. We got to do more of these.
I'm the ideas guy. I'm the ideas guy behind the pod.
Right. This is what we need. And then we got Alex to help execute these ideas.
Yo, shout out to Alex for the graphics,
man. Got the graphics.
Hopefully,
our guy Alex is going to have a fantastic Valentine's Day. Hopefully, everybody in the chat is going to have a great Valentine's Day. Greg, I know you got some places to be, so we're going to wrap this stream up here. Have a great day, my dog. And everybody, we will catch you guys probably after the All-Star break. So either late Sunday or early Monday, we'll have another pod for you guys leading up to the Celtics and Sixers on Thursday. And then we'll be back here Friday morning for another live Coffee and C's to recap that tilt for you. Enjoy the All-Star break. Enjoy Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And we will catch you guys later.
Peace.